about that. The shooter was Salvador Romas, an 18-year-old male who resided in Uvalde. It's believed that he abandoned his vehicle and entered into the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde with a handgun, and he may have also had a rifle, but that is not yet confirmed according to my most recent report. He shot and killed horrifically, incomprehensibly, 14 students and killed a teacher. Mr. Romas, the shooter, he himself is deceased and is believed that responding officers killed him. It appears that 2 responding officers were struck by rounds but have no serious injuries. The Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District Police Department is investigating agencies. We will provide them and the city of Uvalde substantial investigative and patrol assistance. We're in the process of obtaining detailed background information on the subject, his motive, the types of weapons used, the legal authority to possess them, and conduct a comprehensive crime scene investigation and reconstruction, and identify and interview all witnesses and provide victim services and other support as needed. Victor Escalon is the Texas Department of Public Safety South Texas Regional Director.
Sat him down.
He is on the scene, and everything that can be done will be done. In addition to that, it is being reported that the subject shot his grandmother right before he went into the school. And I have no further information about the connection between those 2 shootings. And the subject is reported to be a student, to have been a student at Uvalde High School, and is a U.S. citizen. Bottom line is this, however, and that is when parents drop their kids off at school, they have every expectation to know that they're going to be able to pick their child up when that school day ends. And there are families who are in mourning right now, and the state of Texas is in mourning with them for the reality that these parents are not going to be able to pick up their children. Our job is
I did see
multifold.
one mother running to try to get
to make sure
school.
we address exactly what happened at this crime scene, and then second, to make sure we take that information and do everything that is necessary to ensure that crime scenes like this are not going to be repeated in the future, and that we're going to be able to ensure the safety and security of our schools.
You were listening to Texas's governor just a short time ago confirming those awful numbers playing out this afternoon in Uvalde, a small rural town in Texas. Fewer than 20,000 people live there. Those numbers, 14 children killed, a teacher shot and killed as well. You heard the governor there talk about the suspect's grandmother also prior to this shooting, that the governor said, I can't give you more information on how those shootings are linked, though presumably he killed his grandmother and then headed to the school, though we'll wait for authorities to confirm that when they do come before the cameras this afternoon. As you've been watching with us throughout our reporting this afternoon, the size of law enforcement, the presence on the scene continues to grow. Our Maria Villarreal, who is our correspondent in Texas, is on the scene. And Maria, I know you've already interacted with so many families who are just now getting this awful news.
David, it is a heartbreaking situation, and not just as a parent myself, but really as a human, as a person. And we were coming into Uvalde, and you could just feel the intensity of the situation as we were driving in. Everybody is moving quickly here. Everybody is looking for answers. Parents are frantic as we got closer to the school. And I am looking at it right now with the yellow tape all the way around it. As we got closer to the school, I saw parents running down the street towards the school. A couple of them stopped us. We spoke with one family who said they were looking for their 10-year-old niece. They had contacted the hospital. They had contacted the school. They had reached out to people in San Antonio as well, because they've heard that that's where victims were taken, and they could not get any information. We connected them with some contacts that we have in San Antonio, and they are right now in touch with them. I got closer to the school, and I was stopped by a dad who asked if I knew how to get to the funeral home, because
oh my gosh,
he couldn't find his 10-year-old little girl.
Oh,
Maria Villarreal.
oh my gosh. Oh
Sorry,
my
David,
gosh.
it's just it's a really tough situation to be here, and to see this dad who I know is stoic in most situations. The funeral home is a few blocks from where the school is. He did tell me as of right now he was notified and was trying to find more information on Facebook. What he could tell me was he does believe the shooting happened in his daughter's classroom.
Oh,
That classroom is full of young children. He told me young 10-year-old children. He has not been able to confirm that information with school district officials, but he does know a number of parents have gotten together and are sharing information through group text and through Facebook posts. And he is very fearful that his daughter's classroom was the one that was targeted by this shooter. David?
Just unimaginable. Maria Villarreal with the story of just one father now trying to find his own child after word of this horrific shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Governor Abbott confirming those numbers that we had reported earlier. 14 children killed in this shooting, a teacher killed as well, and Governor Abbott adding to that word that the suspect, he said, shot and killed his grandmother right before the shooting at that school. I want to bring in Pierre Thomas, our Chief Justice Correspondent in Washington. And Pierre, as I mentioned just a moment ago, law enforcement, the presence growing by the minute there on the scene. And I know federal authorities have been watching this since first word.
David, they have been confirming the information that the governor just recently spoke of. And David, I can tell you that there's growing concern that
Taco,
we are
I'm
in
sorry.
the midst of a surge of these kinds of incidents. Just last week, as you and I were in Buffalo, an 18-year-old
No, Amanda,
there
he is
accused of murdering
dead.
all those black people. Now we have an 18-year-old in that community, believed to be a part of that community, killing so many young people and a teacher. Sources
Tim, I know.
are,
I
in
literally
fact,
just
telling me
put
about
my kids
concern.
down and quizzed
They're
them.
trying to run down this information that he may have, in fact, killed his grandmother. They are doing a deep dive on social media posts by this young man to glean what he was thinking, what he was writing, what he was posting in recent days. This is a full court tilt right now to make sure no one else has knowledge. There are some additional people that they have some questions about. David?
Pierre Thomas tracking this in Washington. We are set to hear from authorities there on the ground in Uvalde. Their first time before the cameras addressing what's played out this afternoon. Let's listen.
Good afternoon. As she mentioned, I'm going to make a statement, and at this point, we won't take any questions. We will give you a time when we'll be addressing the media soon. At approximately 11:32 a.m. this morning, there was a mass casualty incident at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. The school has children that are in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. I can confirm right now that we have several injuries, adults and students, and we do have some deaths. The suspect is deceased at this point. DPS is assisting with the investigation. And at this point, the investigation is leading to tell us that the suspect did act alone during this heinous crime. Families are being notified, and we are providing services to them as the district should. As far as the rest of the district is concerned, safety measures were taken to make sure that we had a safe release for the rest of the district throughout our city of Uvalde. And we had numerous law enforcement officers and agencies that assisted with the safety release for those students. We do want to keep all their families in their prayers. I hope you do as well.
I know, Tim.
And we also want to respect the privacy of the family. Everything is still being worked on. And again, we'll notify the parents and the families as soon as we have some news for them. Thank you so much.
We greatly appreciate your understanding and patience with us. Please know at this time, we are only making a statement. We will be releasing more information as the investigation continues. We appreciate your courtesy. At this time, it concludes our press conference. Thank you.
All right, authorities there on the ground beginning to offer more of what played out this afternoon, though they were very careful They're not to actually give any numbers, though the governor has provided those numbers, at least what we know so far. Again, you heard authorities there say this started playing out 11:32 a.m. Texas time in Uvalde. Of course, we know that is now about 80 miles outside of San Antonio. Inside an elementary school, authorities there saying students there are in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades, though they didn't say exactly which classroom or classrooms were targeted by this suspect. They did confirm what we believed already, that the suspect is deceased. They assured the community that the suspect acted alone, that they do not believe anyone else is involved in this awful, heinous crime this afternoon. Families are being notified, which we know is the painful task that follows every single one of these shootings in this country, and that familiar request of the community and of the nation from authorities there to
Lord
keep
bless
all
those people,
of the families
policemen that have
in
to-
our
oh.
prayers. Extraordinary scene playing out in Texas, in Uvalde, Texas, late today, as we begin to get a clearer portrait of just the toll of the death at that school. And these were children, 14 children,
know,
a
Sandy.
teacher, all killed. Governor Abbott confirming the grandmother of the suspect was
You guys,
shot and killed.
wasn't
before
Sandy Hook
the shooting that
14
played out
children as
at the
well?
school. Unclear exactly when or how that played out, but obviously the suspect being tied to that as well. Let's bring in our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katersky. Aaron, what more do we know about the suspect at this hour? I know the governor was very careful when talking about the shooting of the grandmother, but obviously authorities are pointing to these 2 shootings as clearly linked to this lone suspect, as we just heard from authorities moments ago.
It seems they are, David. In fact, the governor said that just before the shooter entered Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, he shot his grandmother. We believe the grandmother, according to multiple law enforcement sources, is deceased. The
Okay,
gunfire
thank you,
then
Ruby.
continued inside the elementary school, where the governor said 14 elementary school students were shot and killed, along with a teacher. A number of officers from a number of different agencies responded, including Customs and Border Protection agents,
Sandy.
and they were involved in subduing the suspect. 18-year-old Salvador Ramos is how the governor of Texas identified him and said that he was shot and killed on the scene. Right now, authorities said that it's believed he acted alone, but David, they are scouring social media posts of his and running down any known accomplices to see if he may have given any hints about whether this was coming, why he may have done it. All of that remains under investigation. Still a very active scene.
Aaron Katersky, stay with us here as we
Delaney.
continue our coverage. I want to bring in Elizabeth Newman, an ABC News contributor, formerly with the Department of Homeland Security. And Elizabeth, when we were on the air about an hour ago together,
They
you
just-
talked
they're
about the threat in
frantic.
this
I
country
just
and the
hate
warnings,
to
quite
see
frankly,
stuff.
from federal authorities that there could be more of this. And just look what's played out in the last week and a half here. 10 days ago, we were standing in Buffalo at the seat of that horrific shooting at the grocery store. 9 days ago, Laguna Woods, California, the man who walked into the church there. And now we're at the scene of a school shooting where we have now learned 14 children and a teacher have been killed.
That's right. And unfortunately, we expect that we will see more of this. All of the federal government law enforcement agencies have been warning that we're in a heightened threat environment that is inspired not only by ideological violent extremism like what we saw in Buffalo and in California last week, but also just a mix of grievances and
I know, Tim.
anger and people just not mentally well right now. And I don't mean a defined mental illness. I just mean it's been a very difficult 2 years on all of us in society, and we're not doing
She's-
well
She
in
is
how we
right.
treat one another, and
Preach.
particularly for adolescents. We've seen statistic after statistic of COVID being particularly difficult for teens.
Yep.
Increases in mental health concerns, increases in depression, increases in suicide, domestic violence across the board. We're just
Yeah.
dealing with a massive epidemic of consequences coming from a very difficult 2 years. And unfortunately, one of the ways in which this seems to manifest is through these targeted violence and terroristic type of
Yeah.
attacks. And unfortunately, the federal government and all the experts I talk to tell us that we should expect to see more of this.
Elizabeth Newman, you make an excellent point, Elizabeth, because not only are we dealing with the longstanding problem of gun violence and these mass shootings in America, but now, as Elizabeth points out, This comes on the heels of a 2.5-year pandemic, and you believe that the mental toll of that pandemic and all of the other factors at play in this country are weighing even more heavily on a problem that was already long established in this country.
Well, of course.
That's right. And unfortunately, we have not done a great job of preparing for this reintegration, for reopening, for helping kids, teenagers to deal with the stress.
Yeah, we forget about them, y'all.
From studying
We
people
really
that commit attacks like this, that there are a series of indicators or risk factors that
as a country did not do a good job of reintroducing these kids or realize the stress they were under.
Years prior to somebody committing an attack. And some of those stressors include drastic changes in lifestyle, loss of job, loss of a loved one, loss of the way in which you're used to carrying out life, which of course, for all of us during COVID, we had that massive disruption, a massive loss. And for some, that loss was people, but for others, it just was the way in which you're used to carrying out your life and engaging with people. Social isolation is another risk factor. So all of those things on top of, we're already a country that has a horrible series of years of violence, both in schools and in other mass attacks in public spaces. So it's not that it's just COVID, but COVID on top of this epidemic of gun violence in our country is creating the perfect storm for these types of attacks to start to almost snowball. And the concern we have, of course, is every time there's an attack, we worry about copycats, we worry about further inspiration, even if it's not necessarily for the same grievance or ideology. Just the mere fact that an attack occurs and it gets attention can be the trigger that causes somebody to decide, well, today's the day I'm going to take that action I've been thinking about and go and kill somebody. So it's just a very dangerous and heightened threat period right now. And if we can encourage the viewers, if there is a loved one or somebody that you're in contact with and you have concerns, please say something. Please talk to them. And if you can, try to get them help through a mental health professional. And if they're unwilling to engage with you, call law enforcement. You might be able to see the one indicator that somebody is about to commit an act of violence, and you might be able to help stop it. But right now, we're just in a very precarious environment, and we need everybody to look out for one another.
Elizabeth Newman, formerly with the Department of Homeland Security and the Trump administration, with us here this afternoon. Elizabeth, thank you. I think your points are all very well made, urging the American people who are witnessing yet another horrific shooting playing out in America to think about loved ones, their neighbors, and if anyone is in need.
The grandma is in critical
condition,
condition, just so y'all know.
Extraordinarily heavy time in this country. Please help them, seek help, and certainly if you're concerned, reach out to authorities. I want to talk about that statement just coming in from the White House. The press secretary saying President Biden has been briefed on the horrific news of this elementary school shooting in Texas. Obviously, will continue to be briefed. His prayers are with the families impacted by this awful event, and he will speak this evening when he arrives back at the White House, obviously after his overseas trip. That from Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary moments ago, the statement from the president. I want to bring in Brad Garrett, a longtime ABC News consultant. Brad, you and I have been on the air with so many of these awful shootings. And now that we've learned a little more about the suspect, it helps to begin to put the pieces together of what is, in some cases, sort of a familiar pattern that we see in some of these cases, a family member or a loved one targeted before then a location somewhere in the community targeted next.
So I think what that tells you, David, that this guy just wanted to go on a rampage and annihilate people that were close or were important in his life. So we don't know the relationship, obviously, with the grandmother, but there's something there. So from there, he goes.
I know,
to
Sandy,
school.
but try
Again,
not
we
to make
don't
it
know
too
the
political
connection
in
to the
chat,
school,
or
but
they'll
it
strike
did
me.
represent something to him. And if he knew anything about this school, and the reason you have so many casualties is a small classroom. If you break into a classroom, a teacher, a dozen or so students, maybe more in a classroom, the idea that you could sadly shoot everyone in there in just a few seconds is a sad reality. And he probably knew that. he also knew that he was not going to leave that school. Either law enforcement was going to kill him or he was going to kill himself, because that's sort of part of the reality when you start with killing a loved one before you go to the school. That's exactly what Adam Lanza did in Newtown at Sandy Hook. We've seen it in other mass shootings. It doesn't change the reality.
Oh, wow.
It may
Okay, thank
perhaps
you,
change
Black
the
Cat.
mindset. But to sort of expand a little bit what Elizabeth was talking about, we really need to do a much better job of getting people, let's say in this community, let's use it for an example. What was the relationship between the staff and the students at the high school where this kid apparently attended? There'll be pieces of information about what this kid was going to do. He apparently was all over social media, from what I can briefly gather. Don't know the specifics. There'll be pieces of information. He may even have videos of himself.
Yes, just so you know,
Who
I
saw
have
them?
somebody
Could they
behind the
have reported
scenes that
them?
has gotten
So
me
this boils
pictures.
down to
He
relationships.
definitely has several guns on his
of
Facebook.
students with teachers, with law enforcement officers. Can you build some trust in the community or inside a school or inside a factory? How many times have we talked about these shootings being at a place of employment where people will talk and they'll tell you things they're hearing or seeing? They may not be accurate, but you've got to follow up.
I
And
agree,
that is
Amber.
really the key. We're not going to do anything, in my professional and personal view, about
Diana,
firearms.
I'm hearing
It just
conflicting
sort of-
reports about
that's what
that.
we're
I believe
doing.
so.
And nobody
Oh,
really
no,
wants
Sandy,
to
I
change
know.
that law.
Trust
and so
me,
if
Sandy,
you're not
I
going to do
agree.
anything about that,
I
then
just
you
know
have
people
to
are
do something
strike
about our
happy right now
relationships
with
and our
political
ability
stuff.
to bring information forward so we can get in front of these shooters. We do it occasionally, but unfortunately, like Buffalo, like
I'm right with you,
today,
Sandy.
we're talking about something after the fact, which we never, ever want to do.
Brad Garrett with us here this afternoon as we just
These
begin
people
to
are
watch
speaking
this
truth,
case, the
guys.
pieces of this very early still
I know
come
criminality.
together. Brad, thank you for what has become a familiar pattern. A young person in a community, this time a young man, 18 years old, believed to be a student at Uvalde the high school there. Whether or not he was still in class or not remains an unanswered question at this hour, but authorities say he did shoot and kill his grandmother before then going to the Robb Elementary School, where he then shot and killed 14 children and a teacher there as well. I want to bring in Isaias Melendez, an eyewitness at the scene.
Just so
and
you guys
Isaias,
know,
first of all,
he was running
I'm
after
sorry
he
that you
shot
have to
his
join us
grandma.
under such
No one
horrific
knows why
circumstances.
he decided
Can you tell
to
us
sneak out of school.
what you saw, what you heard, and where you are?
Yeah, well, it was just this morning I was sitting with my friend and we were just hanging out at his house, and I got a call from my mom asking if I heard the gunshots, because we do live in the same area as the school. And I said no. And as we were on the phone, we could just hear more gunshots. And then she walked outside and got in the car to go see what was going on, because I wasn't home. And there was cops driving, so many cops, like speeding towards the school. And she told me to go see what was going on at the school. And I told my friend if he wanted to go check it out. He said yeah, so we went to go check it out. And that's whenever the border patrols, there was just any type of law enforcement just there trying to see what was going on, trying to help out. Everybody just going crazy, parents running up and down, and the helicopter hovering over the school. And we heard the gunshots, and they were saying that the shooter was actually shooting out the window and having to shoot out with the cops broad daylight in front of our eyes. Parents going crazy because children were scared and they were running out of the school.
You could actually see some of the children from the other classrooms running from the school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, running out of the school.
And Isaias, what else can you tell us about the community? I know it's a small town. I'm sure most families are familiar with everyone else who lives there, a community that sort of relies on one another, depends on one another.
Yeah, very small community. I mean, every single kid that got shot.
So y'all, I do have confirmation.
Either it's some of my
that
friends or
he posted
my
pics
friends'
of guns
or,
this morning.
I mean, actually, two of the kids that got shot were
his
two of
Instagram
my
account.
girlfriend's cousins.
So this was definitely pre-planned.
And
Let me
without
check. I
naming
think the
any
guns
names, we
were
certainly
like
don't want to do
the
that
assault
on
rifles.
the air here. We want to wait for law enforcement to do that because they have the painful task of notifying the family. So we don't want names on the air, certainly, but can you tell us anything more about what age range we believe that some of these victims are, what grade the classroom was or classrooms that were targeted?
I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure on that.
And what can you tell us about help for these parents that you described running to and from the scene, help with them trying to find their loved ones? Were you able to see if any of those parents were in fact helped, consoled? Are they getting what they need?
No, you could just see the fear in their eyes. I mean, we were all told.
Anyone else want to keep their kids home tomorrow?
I mean, we didn't know what was going on. Or we were just all told
Yeah,
to step
peaceful
back.
plants.
And
I have some
as
of
a
them.
parent, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. You're going to put your life in jeopardy for your kid.
Isaias Melendez, we really do appreciate your observations on such a horrific day in your community, and I'm sorry for you having to live through and witness what you saw there this afternoon. But you've been listening here to ABC News Live coverage. The witness there talking about watching parents run to the school, trying to find out anything they could about their own children, their own loved ones, waiting for word from authorities. Isaias also described the gunshots that he could still hear once he arrived at that school, and also the children running from the school, from the other classrooms to safety. All of this as he was standing there watching this play out. I want to bring in Maria Villarreal, our correspondent who's already on the scene, and she was telling us earlier about the father who had not heard about his own child. I'm curious if we know anything more about him. And Maria, you've also learned about the general age range of some of the victims this afternoon.
Yeah, David. So as we were walking right up to the school, as you can see, it's right behind me. We've spoken with several family members, several parents, each one of them telling us that the child they cannot find at the Civic Center where evacuations were happening, at the hospitals nearby, and in
Not
San
all of them
Antonio.
criminality.
The children's ages that are still
Me neither,
missing
Rhoda Gale.
are 10 years old,
Completely
which puts
agree.
them right around 4th grade. Now, again, school district officials are not releasing a whole lot of information
It's
at
like
this
watching what
time,
we did
but
with
this
Sandy
is
Hook all
information
over
we are
again.
getting directly from parents. These are parents we saw running to the school
This poor
to
woman
try
is
and
wrecked.
find their kids. One father I spoke with, as you just mentioned, not more than about 15 minutes ago, stopped me in the street,
Oh,
and he asked me if I knew where the funeral home was. That funeral home is about 4 blocks away from us down
my
this
God.
street. As you can see, there is a heavy law enforcement presence here right now. We have a Department of Troopers, DPS here on site, local law enforcement
Oh,
as
you
well,
bet,
Border
Tim.
Patrol agents. And for those of you that might be wondering why there might be a heavy Border Patrol agent presence, it's because we're not too far from the border. I've spoken with the mayor's office as well. He tells us right now this is a very flexible and fluid situation. But one thing he could tell
I
us was
believe
this
so
is a
at this
community
point,
that is very
Navigator.
strong, very connected, a community of farmers and ranchers, and this is a very devastating situation for them. I mean, this town has less than 20,000 people in it. So this is an extremely difficult situation for them. A lot of these family members are lingering right behind us. They are waiting to hear any information they can from not just law enforcement, but even school district officials. Just about a minute or two ago, we did see FBI
I'm
SWAT
not
vehicles
sure yet,
go right
criminality.
through
I've
here.
heard the cops
Larger
did.
vehicles than what we are normally used to see. A lot of times when these vehicles come on site, it is for 2 reasons. One, to try and check the location for any sort of explosive devices that may have been taken on by the suspect. That is not the case in this situation. These vehicles look like vehicles that will be used to try and take victims out of the school.
Hi,
Again,
Shay.
David, we're very cautious in the information that we're releasing right now because, as we heard just a bit ago, both the governor, law
Oh my
enforcement,
gosh,
and school district
Michelle
officials
K.
are being very
I know
limited
my
in what they're
friends
telling us.
that
And
all
that is
live in
because they want to make
Texas.
sure
One
they
of
get in
them has-
contact with all of the parents before giving us that info. David?
Maria Villarreal, we appreciate your
There was a
reporting, and we know
school
as a mom
shooting,
yourself, it's not
Rebellious
easy
Rose and Shay,
arriving at the scene of these
14
awful shootings
children
having
and
to
1
interact
teacher
with family members,
and a
just as you
grandmother
simply report out the story and the pain that you describe from that father.
in an elementary
we could all
school.
feel in your description. So Maria, we'll come back to you. Thank you for that. Lee Waldman is with KSAT, our ABC station that covers that region. And Lee, thank you as well for joining us this afternoon. And what more can you tell us about, obviously, a very early investigation at this point?
We just got out of the Civic Center that's behind me. This was initially just a reunification center. Parents were told that their students were evacuated into this center here and were told to wait until all the students were accounted for and then they could be picked up here. Unfortunately, what we're seeing now here at the Civic Center is there's families that are getting some of the worst news of their life, and you'll see families passing behind me, even coming this other way as they're going inside to learn more about this tragedy that happened here. We did just get a briefing from the Uvalde Police Department from Pete Arredondo. He's the police chief here, and he couldn't give us a whole lot of information. Most of our information actually coming from Governor Greg Abbott, but he said this is a school filled with second to fourth graders, and they confirmed there were deaths, they confirmed there were injuries, and they said they're working on notifying all of those families. And we know that's a lot of what's happening in a lot of these rooms in the Civic Center here behind us. We see families coming out, holding on to each other and crying because they're getting news that they never anticipated they would get after dropping off their children at school today. They fully anticipated bringing them back home, and even that teacher who we have learned at this point who has passed, she anticipated coming home from work today, and that's not going to happen because of the act of just one person. So we're here. We know that there's going to be an additional press conference happening soon where we're able to ask some questions, get additional details about what happened at the school today. We know that the shooting started, the first call came in around 11:32 this morning. We're hearing
Rebellious
the shooter was involved
16
and
total,
maybe
it looks like.
possibly killing his grandmother before he went to this elementary school. There's still a lot of law enforcement in this area. So we're just waiting for that additional press conference where we're able to ask more questions to school officials, also to law enforcement officials. But you can really feel the sadness as you step inside that Civic Center as families just hold on to each other and try to hold themselves together after something like this.
Lee Waldman, KSAT, and Lee, we really do appreciate your reporting right outside the Civic Center there in Uvalde. And Lee, thank you. Lee reporting on the pain from parents who have arrived at that center now to get the horrific news, whether or not their child had survived this. And she said that was the place where they were informing parents of the 14 children who were shot and killed. Beginning late morning Texas time, 11:32 there in Uvalde, Texas. The first call came in. The suspect again has been revealed as 18-year-old Salvador Ramos of Uvalde, attending high school there. Not clear whether or not he was still a student, but in fact is involved as a student. Whether he was attending class, that's a question that investigators will have to answer in the hours ahead. That he shot and killed his grandmother at some point this morning before heading to that school, where he then opened fire inside the school. Again, unclear whether it was one classroom or multiple classrooms. We heard our reporter on the scene, Maria Villarreal, just from anecdotes from parents who've arrived there. Again, no names of any of the victims have been released. We'll leave that to the authorities. But anecdotally, Maria telling us that the parents looking for their loved ones, looking for their children, repeatedly said to Maria, among the other questions they were asking her about where to find this information, saying, we're just looking for information on our 10-year-old. That was the age that continued to be asked about with Maria right there on the scene, which just is heartbreaking to wrap your head around. That again, in America, 14 children shot and killed inside the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, late this morning, including a teacher as well, shot and killed. The grandmother shot and killed at some point before this mass shooting began to play out in Texas. And you don't need me to tell you, it has been a horrific couple of weeks in this country when it comes to mass shootings. 10 days ago, we were standing in Buffalo at the scene of that grocery store. 9 days ago, our team in California at that church where a man walked in, a congregation knocking him to the ground. What a time, many questions ahead, and we are thinking, as authorities asked us to, about the families in that community. Our coverage will continue on ABC News Live, abcnews.com. If and when authorities come before the cameras with additional details about the horror that's played out there in Texas, we'll be right back on the air. Our entire team will be here for World News Tonight, and for many of you, we return you to your local news now. Until then, I'm David Muir in New York. Good day.
All right, hold on a second, guys. I just want to trying to get my thoughts here. Hold on one second. I wanted to show you. Thank you to Kathy Joe, who, man, she's the one, guys, that's behind the scenes as this is happening. She was like gathering the stuff off his pages, his Instagram and stuff. She's the one that really just did amazing for me of researching it while I was sitting here when we were listening to that. I want to pull up some pictures here. One second. All right. This is what she did pull off of his Instagram. So let's go ahead and let me share these. Oh, it's already shared. So this allegedly looks like this was April 28th. This is the shooter. I mean, that's no big deal. This, I would imagine, is his guns. And obviously what I would assume he used today. So yes, for those asking if he had guns. You're welcome, Peaceful Plants. I actually went and yes, essay. I actually went and texted Kathy Joe and some Amber and stuff and said, "Is this okay? I don't want to like get on. Well, I got a monster's. I don't want to like stream and be insensitive." And they said, "No, I think it's okay to talk about it." So I didn't want to be insensitive, and to be honest, at this point, I needed to stream that because UPS. We love UPS. Thank you. I did just to talk to Brittany, and we're gonna actually switch our plans up now since this happened. We're both have young kids. Obviously, my mods, everybody in this country right now is pretty rocked. So we are going to do something different than the Heather Elvis for tonight. Later on, we are going to go over any details that we've up to date on this, any more we find out, as well as her and I are going to open up the panel to anybody who just wants to come up and talk about this, about how they might feel with. Sorry, my husband just got home. Hi. How they might feel about it and all that kind of stuff. Just because, yeah, just seems more appropriate tonight. I know, mine too. From what Kathy Joe uncovered was it looks like he shot his grandmother and he was running from police, wrecked his truck and ran into the school, and for some reason decided to. I don't want to send our kids to school tomorrow. I know, honey. Really unpopular opinion. Wow. Yeah, I'm waiting. There'll be some sort of email here coming up soon, I'm assuming from our school. I'm not gonna lie, whether this makes me a good mom or not, it might not, but as soon as I heard this, I brought all my kids in one by one, and I was like, I want to know right now what you would do in a school shooting. And my daughter was immediately like, go right under her desk. And then I said, okay, lockdown, you don't approach anybody. And then I pulled in my youngest son. He goes, I would, just being goofy, I would go beat him up or something. And I was like, look, sit down right now. I said, this isn't funny. And I was open with him and I told him, this isn't funny. I need to know you know what to do. And so, he told me what he would do. And then my oldest, I did the same thing too. And he's like, I don't know, like hide in a closet. And I was like, no. If you go, but you need to do exactly what the school tells you to do. And the fact that I even had to have that conversation with him is, yeah, you got to wonder, Tim. That's part of the info. Again, I will keep close to my computer tonight. So if there's another conference or anything, at some level, I want to shelter my kids, but at another level, it's like I have to know that they know what to do. Yeah, run if you can. I just told them do not run out into like the hallway, you know. I said if there's a window open, go out the window. But whatever you do, do not approach. Thanks, Mrs. P. Thanks for everybody that said that. Well, you know, some people have different opinions that, you know, you shouldn't let kids see that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, I don't know. I mean, you got it. This community is less than 20,000 people. So that we're not talking a massive city. I mean, are you guys all okay with holding off on Heather Elvis tonight and keeping our focus mainly on this and what's happening in the country and kind of talking through it together? I don't know why it just feels like not the right night for discussing Heather Elvis, especially if there's, you know, as the night progresses, I'm sure we're going to end up hearing more details and, um, yep, Amber. Well, then my son, I said, it's not my youngest. I said, it is not funny. This is because he thought it was funny. I said, you know what? This is not funny. There's 14, and I told him, you know, like, and then he asked if it was the big city that we were just in, and I said, no, but it's a town just like we lived in Texas, and just like we live in here. I know you do, Mrs. P. Yeah, and did so I really loved the woman. First of all, prayers to the law enforcement too that have to see this. Everybody that yes, Rena, I will try to yes, I will try to be conscious of that. You're gonna have to tell me, remind me, and until we actually know the victims, it might be a little bit tricky, but yes, I will try not to give them too much attention. Yeah. Um I really liked how she said stuff because we do forget, and you know, we do forget. And I remember one of my seventh graders, um, my son's teacher said that they have more grace on the kids because we have to understand that when the kids got out of classroom setting, it was fifth grade, and like our just went back full time mentally and maturity wise, they are farther behind. Um, did I miss what essay said? I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me see what she said. Oh wow. So, geez. um you know, we perhaps as a society, and I'm not saying this is the only reason, this probably would have happened either way, but didn't do a great job reintroducing. And we have to remember the amount of stress the kids were under during the pandemic. And you know, adults thought it was stressful, but from my understanding, Rena, yes, let me check my I'm telling y'all, Kathy Joe, like I just go on, yep, she's already got stuff. Now she's talking to me, but um, let me ask her. Right. She's checking. Okay. Um, but yeah, so that's but she made some really good points. The poor woman who is definitely obviously brokenhearted, the woman that was what do you call her? Network anchor. You know, the one I do as a joke. I mean, to hear a father say that, she was clearly distraught. It's but you know, most of the parents don't even know. Some of the parents don't even know yet if their kids. You can, Tim, certain guns for the best of my knowledge. I don't know. Kathy Joe's checking on that right now. Oh, yes, they got right in. One child was taken to the hospital with grandma. What? Okay, so what Kathy Joe is finding out allegedly is that one child was taken to the hospital with the grandmother, his grandmother. The child might have been a brother or sister and was injured at the same time as grandma was. Yeah, I mean, we well, the kids saw our stress emotionally and physically. They were stressed, it's a lot. I know, Brian. So one thing I'm going to ask is when we talk later is just let's not. I understand where you're coming from, Brian. I just don't want to start that stuff or a presidential debate or anything like that in chat because, um, first of all, people are strike happy, and second of all, because it just creates division amongst us. And right now, we don't need any more division. Um, we'll talk facts and feelings. Yeah. So let's Amber, can you or one of the mods just I just don't I've heard people getting yeah. Um what was I gonna say? But I mean I hope this offers perspective too of how foolish, thank you, Rena, how foolish this yes, Kathy Joe, that's what I said, allegedly, but I know you know. At the end of the day, the YouTube drama doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't when you've got this. I mean, if this doesn't put things into perspective for everyone, then I can't imagine going even live right now about something drama related. It's just crazy. It's just nuts. Um, and that's why like I said, I immediately text Brittany and was like, "Hey, is this?" Is it cool if we switched it? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. So I think everybody's got some feelings. We're all a little shell shocked. So unless they do a conference here, I'm going to end this. And then I think we'll come back here. I think Brittany said at 9:30, but I'll come back sooner myself if there's something else. And we'll kind of chat a couple minutes about what we know. And then we'll open it up and ugh, whoever wants to come up on panel and just kind of, nope, we'll have a rule though. I know, Brian. I understand. I understand why you're saying what you're saying. I know, SA. Did they say they haven't located the weapon? I'm not sure on that. Yes, Rena, 9:30 Eastern. And Brian, thank you. I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure yet, Black Cat, but I'll come back before that if they come with a press conference, and then we'll come back at 9:30, and again, we're gonna open up the panel so people can just kind of say what they feel. Our only rules would be no politics or gun debate because this is a time we need to just kind of come together and focus on just what's going on right now. All right. Oh, see you guys later. It's a tough topic. I appreciate you tuning in. Bye, guys.